Hey guys, it's time for another edition of Singles Only Podcast. Paul Farahvar here, your host. This episode was done via Zoom with food influencer and food TV producer Jeremy Jacobowitz from the Brunch Boys in New York. Fun episode. Did this via Zoom, like I said. Super fun episode. It might make you hungry. It might not. I don't know your issues with food or if they are like mine. Very interesting talk with Jeremy. I think you'll like this episode a lot. I am traveling again tonight. If it depends on when you hear this, I'll be at the Laugh Factory in Chicago. Then I'll be at the Metropolitan at the Willis Tower with Marty Rosa on September 19th. Then headlining House of Comedy in Arizona September 21st. And then headlining JP's in Gilbert, Arizona September 22nd through the 24th. If you know people in Arizona, please send them there. I want to sell these shows out again. Looney Bin, Oklahoma next week, September 26th to October 1st. Then I'm in Coral Gables, October 8th, and then headlining Arlington Draft House as well in Washington, D.C. If you know people there, tell them to come out there Sunday, October 9th, which is the day before Columbus Day. And then I am headlining for the first time Zanies in Rosemont on Sunday, October 16th. PaulFComedy.com has links to all those tickets. Hopefully you can make it to one of those shows. Send your friends if you have friends in Arizona, DC, or Rosemont, or Saugatuck, Michigan. I don't know. You can get my shirt, Better Call Paul, on my website as well, or at the shows. All the proceeds go to Parkinson's Foundation. And if you are listening to this for the first time, please subscribe, rate us, tell your friends, share, all that stuff. I want to get my ratings back up. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm doing great with all the live shows. Hopefully see you in a town soon. If I'm not in your town and you want me there, or if you want any comedians that you like, the best way to tell them or get them into your city is to tell the comedy clubs that you go to. They listen to you guys more than they listen to us. So I get a lot of people ask me, when am I going to be in Dayton? When am I going to be... I'm trying my darndest. So that's it. Hope you like this episode. And please feel free to email me at pfarahvar@gmail.com if you have any comments, concerns. I started a blog on my website, and actually I've been doing it for a year, but now I'm telling people about it. So if you have questions about the podcast or anything, pfarahvar@gmail.com. I usually answer them in a form of a blog if it's something I could answer in that regard. I have also got it on my LinkedIn. So friend me on LinkedIn. Check out our sponsors. Welcome to another edition of Singles Only Podcast. My name is Paul Farahvar. We are doing this podcast via Zoom with no voice of reason. Very excited for our next guest. You guys might know him as part of the Brunch Boys. He's a food influencer, so it's a little different than the comedians we have, but I'm sure he has amazing stories to tell us about his dating life. Jeremy Jacobowitz. Did I say it right?
Yes, that's perfect. Hello.
Hey,
I'll
Jeremy.
try and be. And now I'm nervous. You're like, oh, not one of the comedians. I'm like, oh God. I mean, I'll try and be funny, I guess.
No, you don't need to. You've got way more shit to talk about than most of us. You know, like you're in a situation where I think just dating you, if I were a girl, I would be so fucking intimidated because
Okay.
Yeah, because you are kind of like. Look, for comedians, I think it's hard because, you know, we're funny and people expect you to be funny. But like if you're on a date and like you're going to a restaurant with a food expert, that's got to be pretty hard.
I guess so. I mean, I would say, honestly, it's more that they're just excited because I do think it's like, especially being in New York, like people are very passionate about foods. But so when you find people that aren't, it's like a big red flag for people. So I do find it's more the opposite where they're like, oh wow, I really wanted to go out with you because I know that you love food and you like know the best food or whatever, like excited to know like where I could take them, what adventures they could go on. I do think like more excitement than being nervous, I think.
But does it make you, because you are in that field, are you more of a snob about food, or if you have strong opinions, I assume, about certain things?
Kind of. I actually think I'm the complete opposite, having worked in food for this long. Like before even all the influencer stuff, like I used to work in food TV. So like I've been in so many restaurants, I've been to so many chefs. Like I just like, I don't know. And I think like food is very subjective. Like I try and just be very positive about everything that I do. And like, maybe I don't like this particular dish, but it doesn't mean it's bad. Like, I don't know, I have a lot of leeway with it, honestly, just having been through it for so many years. Like, I don't want to, I hate being super critical of food actually. So I'm almost the opposite, which is funny.
But I also think you can't be fake, right? Like, I mean, like if somebody, like I'm a music snob.
Yeah.
If someone's like says their favorite band is, Red Hot Chili Peppers, who I hate for some stupid reason, I'm just be like, well, wait, why? Like, I feel like you wouldn't you have to at least question, like if they say, I think McDonald's is one of the best restaurants of all time. What are you going to do?
Oh no, sure. I mean, I definitely have like strong opinions on things. Like even one thing on one of my dating profiles, I think it's on Hinge, where they have the prompts. It says like give me some, I forget what the prompt is, like give me some take, and I'm like, I hate rainbow bagels. And it's an interesting response. I get back to that because that does tell me something about them. Like one response even got, the funniest one, I screenshot it, God knows where it is now, but literally like some girl responded, she's like, my mom invented the rainbow bagel. I was like, I think this is a sign that we shouldn't go out then.
Or opposites attract, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I would think that like you said earlier, because the scene, that might be a situation where people just go out with you just because they want to experience like a date where someone knows what the fuck they're talking about, just to be like kind of a sponge to take your information. Do you have that problem?
No, unfortunately for them, I would never do a first date eating food. So for multiple reasons, not for that reason, just a reason of like, I don't know. My whole approach is like, I don't know who this person is. I don't want to get roped into some fucking dinner with somebody. Let's just go get drinks and see how it is. If he ends up getting food, that's totally fine afterwards. But I don't want to set up that expectation of, we're going to go eat dinner, because that's not the type of date I personally want to be on.
Yeah. At a first date, I always say something short, easy, get out, in and out.
Mm-hmm. So exactly.
Speaking of dating, why are you single? You think, like, are you, tell us why you're single?
I mean, I think there's a multitude of reasons. I think, like, listen, I have the same like issue that everyone in New York has, which is like grass is always greener. And there's a billion people. Someone asked the other day, they're like, why is everyone in New York single? Like, aren't there so many people to go out with? I'm like, yes, but that is the problem. It's like you're able to pick apart and be selective, probably too picky with it. So I think it's part of it too. I think part of it too is just like, I mean, it's not that I haven't found girls that I've been interested in, but those girls haven't been interested in dating me. So I've had one long-term relationship years and years and years ago. I've had a couple very smaller things, but I don't know, I'm 35. My perspective is like, it doesn't really get me down in any way. I think just kind of part of the game, and you just go through it and go the ebbs and flows of even wanting and motivated to go on dates. Like, I honestly can't tell you last date I went on. It's probably been a few months, but I'm like, whatever, maybe I'll be more, now it's the fall, summer's over, feeling more energized. Maybe I'll be more motivated to go on dates.
It's pumpkin spice season. Do you have strong opinions about that then?
I'm all in. It's not what I'm necessarily going to order, but you go for it if you love it.
When you said you were in a long-term relationship, how long was long? What's long for you?
That was a year.
Okay, that's a long time for me.
And that's the only one I would ever consider like boyfriend, girlfriend, legitimate relationship. Okay. Everything else has just been like, well, little tiny things here, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. I mean, it seems like, you're still young and you're in New York, where I think places like New York and LA and bigger cities, people are more selfish. They're ambitious. They don't have time or need somebody else, to be fair. It's not like you're in a small town in Boise, Idaho, where you have to get married because there's nothing else to do.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Whether that's good or bad, I totally agree.
Right. And that's not even a judgment so much as that's just the way it is. You don't think about dating when you're busy and you're being productive or you're doing cool shit. And so that's part of it. But for you, do you want to get married and have kids? Is that something that's like a priority to you at some point, or no?
Oh yeah, no, it's a priority to me.
Okay.
On like a very basic level of like, no, I know that's what I want. I also have this, my approach to it is like, people always ask like, well, what's the meaning of life? Like, to me, it's very easy. Like, we're all built to literally just reproduce. So that seems to me like the whole point we're here. So if you don't do that, I mean, listen, do whatever you want. I'm not judging anyone if you don't want kids, but for me personally, I'm like, that seems to be why we're here. So maybe I should do that. So
do you get pressure from your family to do that?
I think my mom would prefer that it happens soon. But I don't, whatever. I can handle her. She's just a Jewish mother. It's all right.
Yeah. Are you an only child, or do you have brothers and sisters who have kids?
I have a younger sister.
Okay.
So she's not married. She has some kids. She has a long-term boyfriend for the past few years, but yeah.
Yeah, having parents once they have grandkids. My brother has kids, so it's like cool. I don't hear anything anymore, so it's What about how are you meeting people when you do go on dates? You said Hinge already. Is that like your go-to, or are you meeting people in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of apps going. Bumble's going, and Hinge is going, and Raya and Locks Club. They're all kind of going. And then real world, Instagram. To me, like there's no, hard fast rules to it. So it's like, I don't know, however I meet someone, that's great.
Yeah, you said Locks Club. I'm assuming that's a food thing, or what is it?
No, it's a Jewish thing.
Okay.
I think everyone technically is allowed in, but they have a giant waiting list. I don't want to get the information wrong. It's supposed to be like a Jewish social thing.
Okay.
They throw badass parties. I actually enjoy that the most. They threw a Fashion Week party last week. It was great.
I think I did a comedy show in New York for that group. That's why now I'm starting to think about
it.
Yeah, there's JDate too for as well, but you don't use that one, I assume.
No, Locks Club is more like it's because it's like very new. It's like very New York and very like a certain type of New York Jew, I guess. Like I find it like I'm like, okay, like there's the people in there are like all really interesting and cool, and their events are really cool. They've done like workout classes. Like, okay, I like that aspect of it rather than like a very hardcore matching thing.
Right. I think events like that where it's young social professionals or whatever, that's always a great place to meet people. But like meeting people organically at a bar now, I feel like those days are kind of numbered.
Maybe. I mean, it's certainly you don't have to. People ask me all the time, like, "Oh, where can I meet people?" I'm like, it's funny. It's girls asking me that. They're like, "How could I approach a guy?" I'm like, I don't know. Men are stupid. Literally just go up to them. Like men won't judge you for you hitting on them ever.
Absolutely.
Women will judge the fuck out of you, and their friends will judge you even worse. It's hard for men to approach women. For a woman, I'm like, she was like, there's a guy at a gym. How do I approach him? I'm like, literally just go up to him and ask him like how to do a workout. Like there's nothing he wants to talk about more, and he will talk for 10 straight minutes. Like
yeah, and going to what you said, like in when I was younger, or when we were younger, the only way you met girls was going to a bar. And every girl I've ever dated for a long term, I met at a bar, usually at like 3 a.m. That's when you start having the balls to talk to girls when you're insecure. Right. So those days, like you said, now there's so much shaming, and women are so mean sometimes to guys when they do approach. And
it's hard, and then they're mean when you don't approach. It's a lose sometimes.
Right. So when you said you go on dates, are there situations where you go on a date where you do go eat with them and someone does something that you're like, oh no, that's not going to work? Like, because I mean, for comedy, it's easy. If you go to a comedy show with a woman, I think it's great. If you guys laugh at the same things or you don't, that's going to be a red flag. Or if people like comics that are just hacks, that's a deal breaker for me in a lot of ways, because it just kind of fucks everything up. For you, is there something that happens? I mean, obviously, I assume if you're in the food industry, for me, when someone treats service industry people shitty, it turns me off big time. But there's stuff like that, maybe not their order so much, but anything that like you.
I mean, I think yes, if they treat the service or anything shitty, like yes, that's a red flag. Generally, it's not. I mean, generally for me, it's just more like it's really like what they can eat for diet or other reasons, or how excited they are about eating. Like, listen, besides it being my job to like literally travel the world and eat, like it's just what excites me, whether I was being paid for it or not. Like that's what I enjoy doing in all my time. So like if I'm going out with someone just like not excited, doesn't really want to try new things, doesn't want to do that, it's just like, well, this is both my professional and personal life is really based around this. And if we're not sort of vibing on that, that's something that you look for in a partner beyond just, the first few dates, which is the point of going on these first dates. So I think like, listen, that's fine for them. I just don't think it's the right fit for me.
Right. Would you, could you date a vegan?
I honestly don't know. I fucking love sushi. Like the idea of dating someone to me is like, cool, let's go do like a fun omakase. You know what I mean? Like to not be able to do that is like heartbreaking.
That's so funny. Cause I just can't imagine there's so many good vegan restaurants, I assume, in New York, but
and
man,
there's great vegan options, a great vegan restaurant. Sure, like we could go to most restaurants and find something she could eat, but I like sharing and ordering 1,000 dishes.
Right,
And like,
right.
I was just in LA with the friends and her friends, and we went to we went to Mother Wolf, which is like a Roman and Italian pasta place. So like basically pizzas, pastas, carbs, everything. She gets there and her friend's like, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm gluten free." And I was like shaking in rage that I want to share every dish. It's like an expensive restaurant. Now I can't do that. And she was very nice about it. Like she let us just order some stuff and like it all worked out perfectly. But I was like, oh God, I can't stand this.
That would be stressful. What about are there types of orders when someone orders, does it tell you a lot about them, like the way they order, like if they are very specific or whether certain types of dishes, do you learn about the person like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that going back to like that adventure stuff. It's like, a lot of I like ordering weird stuff. So the excitement is like, hey, have you tried this? No, Don tried. Or like, oh, what is that? Like just like being excited about that, I think like makes me excited. Like even like I'll go to this sort of Japanese inspired place in Brooklyn called Rule of Thirds. It's one of my favorite restaurants. And they do like duck hearts on a skewer. And like that's a good test. We're like, listen, it's weird, but like you don't have to like it, but like you should at least like be like, oh, I'm interested in trying that. And if you take a bite and you think it sucks, like that's okay. I don't care. Again, food is subjective, but like at least that you're excited about the experience of trying stuff. I've certainly tried lots of weird shit that I did not enjoy eating and don't want to eat again. That's fine, but I was excited to try it at least.
Sure. Are there like coats? I just went on a date recently where she wanted to split everything, and then we got to the cheeseburger at this place. They're known for their cheeseburgers, and they asked, "How do you want it ordered?" And I said, "Well, I want it medium rare," and she wanted it well, and then that's where sparks just went. Does that
well's tough? At least she could say medium. Well is like, why are you even getting the burger?
Thank you. I was just going to ask you, like, I was like, if someone orders a steak or something well done, does that say something about them? Like, I just assume.
Yeah. Do you know what? Not to like, I mean, if you want to yell at me, you could stop being even this political if you want. But do you know what Trump's favorite order was at 21 Club in New York City? He would eat there every day when he lived in New York City.
What was it?
He would get a well done steak with ketchup and a virgin Bloody Mary. So just tomato juice. Like that tells you something about that man, that he wants a well done steak with ketchup and tomato juice for dinner.
I got into a huge fight about it, and I said that when we went on a Google search, I assume people that order well is like they're baby boomers or something's wrong. Like, and I was like, oh, I have a great opportunity to bring this up now. So I wasn't crazy to say that's
no. And even like, I mean, listen, you like, to me, it's like, okay, maybe you compromise in the middle and maybe like you eat a little bit more of the edge and maybe try there's lots of ways to go about it, but or like, I don't know. It's too much.
No, tell me. Go ahead.
No, I'm thinking like, okay, like I'm thinking about how do we compromise here? Like maybe not in the restaurant. Like, okay, maybe, we get, because we're getting a thick burger this time, we go, medium rare, because that's what I want. And next time we'll go get a smash burger, which is cooked a little bit more, so we don't have to worry about the temperature. Right. But maybe you should both try each other's things rather than just doing a thick, well done burger, which sounds terrible.
we did medium well, so nobody was happy. It was like the worst experience. But are there like tips? Like, can you help me if someone orders Brussels sprouts? Do I assume they have daddy issues? Like, is there stuff like that?
I don't. I mean, so.
I love Brussels.
I would say more judging. I would say more judging on like if you're like, hey, what's your favorite restaurant? And it's something like. I think that not good or bad, but like, all right, that gives you a little insight of the way they think for sure, what their favorite restaurant is.
When I see, as comedians, we have to travel a lot, and sometimes you're in towns where there's no real cuisine. But I always try to avoid chain restaurants whenever possible, unless obviously I don't eat dinner until after shows sometimes, and so for me, when somebody does recommend, or they're like, let's go to Applebee's or some shit like that, that kind of is like a kind of a deal breaker for me. And I'm not even a food person. I assume for you, it's like, no way.
I mean, listen, if that's what's in town, I'll fucking eat Applebee's. I don't care. Yeah. But like,
what's funny is, by the way, but that's different.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny. So when I was a TV producer, I was much more that lifestyle, like on the road, like shitty hotels, eating whenever I could, whatever. So we're at the Oklahoma State Fair filming there. It's my camera guy's birthday. We're in, Oklahoma City. Where the fuck? No, sorry. We were in, what's the city in Kansas? Wichita.
City.
We were in Wichita.
Oh yeah. Okay. I've been there.
So I'm thinking like, all right, there's got to be fucking cows here or something. I'm like, hey, like, it's my camera guy's birthday. It's a Saturday night. Like, we've had a long day. I just want to take him to the best steakhouse in town. I was talking to people at the fair. And they're like, oh, yeah, we got the best steakhouse. I'm like, all right, let's hear it. They go, Longhorn Steakhouse. I go, I'm not bringing him to Longhorn Steakhouse. There has to be something else in this town. And there was not much.
Right. Yeah, actually, Wichita has good, they have good steak places, like our barbecue that they're known for. But everything in those towns close at like 9 o'clock.
Well, that was what I was going to say. That was the problem, was that I was like, it's a Saturday night. I start calling up every restaurant. Nothing was open. It actually ended up being a great meal. We found like some random casino that had a steakhouse in the back. So just like literal cowboys there, like smoking, drinking, us like, New Yorkers walking by them. And we had a great experience. They had he got to have 1,000 drinks and a steak. He was happy.
That's great. Now, for going back to deal breakers for you, it's, and maybe not like so much a deal breaker, but what are there other peaks on you thinking, oh, this might not work? Not to say it wouldn't, but obviously, are there like other things, maybe not food related, that you're like, oh, it's not going to work?
I mean, I think just at this point, being 35 and like going out with enough girls, you like every time you go out with someone, you learn something new about them and yourself, about what you want. And I do think like I have a much clearer idea about what I want. To think as you get older too, and you're thinking more seriously, you just like have more stuff too. Like I do think that like I know that I'm just attracted to someone that is more in the creative field, more has a lifestyle like my own. I think that I'm just kind of bored if you're not like that. And I also think that having two very different lifestyles like that sometimes can work. But for me, I don't want that. Like the joy of my life is that I'm not 9 to 5 and I get to do whatever I want. And like, again, going back to like, let me find a partner, like, hey, like if I want to go away for 2 weeks to have this opportunity, like I want someone to come and enjoy it with me.
Right.
And that's really hard if like a very 9 to 5 or whatever kind of life. And I just think you don't understand it either. Like I work every single day. And I think that when you are 9 to 5 like that, you don't understand why I would work every day if I'm my own boss.
Yeah.
So I think having some more in the creative field, like, oh, okay, I understand that hustle, I understand that culture, I understand why you have to do that.
So much that's exactly what we deal with in comedy too, and musicians deal with it too. It's so hard for people to realize that this is our, the times that they normally want to go on dates. At least for us, we're working 7 to 10 every night. So our night starts at 10, and people are like, you're booty calling me at 10. It's like, no, I'm going to make the fucking food because this is when I'm eating dinner.
Right.
But like that doesn't work. Now, for your field though, so for comics, obviously, we try, and I always tell people not to date other comics. Like comedy adjacent is okay, but is there something like that with food in the food industry where like, oh, can't date other influencers?
I mean, maybe I don't think there's any like hard fast rules to it. Certainly people do and don't. I don't really think I've gone out with any like influencers. Maybe I have, I was forgetting, but I don't tend to drift that way. I'm not totally against it.
Okay.
But I do think that like sometimes you feel like with other influencers, like whether they're interested in you or not, even if they like just want to get coffee or whatever, it's like, well, are they just like chasing clout? Like, what do these people want? I think you're asking a lot more questions like that, which not that I'm so worried about, but like, okay, like maybe in the back of my mind a little bit like, okay, like what's this game? In New York, a little less. I see it a lot in LA. Not shocking.
Yeah. For speaking of chasing clout, is that situation where you deal with too, where when I match with someone, I'm very public on my Hinge and on the apps. Do you have that problem where you're like, okay, can I have I need to see your Instagram, I need your last name, and they give you pushback? Like, because I like to know who they are. Do you do your?
I agree with your thought process. I don't ask. I just do the research myself.
Right.
I'll gather enough information, or I could figure this out.
Okay. Yeah. Because sometimes it's hard to separate if it's a fan or if it's a person. It's just like
I mean, I think for the most part, they are pretty upfront when they know me or not. Like they kind of like lean into it a little bit. So like. And also people also say, oh my God, do you date fans? Like, I mean, I don't consider it dating fans, but like a lot of people follow me. So inevitably they probably at least are aware of who I am.
Right.
I don't really think they're super fans, but like, they're like, oh, cool. Like Oh yeah. I've seen your videos on TikTok, like more stuff like that than
Well,
anything.
like someone that's adjacent to you in the creative field is always going to help. So,
Right.
um, what are the things that we talked about deal breakers though? Like, what are there things that you do other than being a creative? If you matched up the last 10 girls you dated, do you have a type? Do they all look the same? Do they all kind
Well,
of
it's funny you say that. So I was in this article in New York Magazine, The Cut, a few months ago now, where they reached out to every girl I've matched with and gone on a date with from a dating app over the past 10 years. So I gave them only reason I was able to do it, like I admitted this
oh
in the
right.
article and to the girls, like I didn't really necessarily remember who everyone was, but I put everyone in my phone on how I met them. So it would say like Catherine Bumble or whatever. I'd be like, oh, cool. Like I know this. So anyway, so I gave them the number. So New York Mag did the work and they reached out to everybody and they got about 10 girls to come do this photo shoot with me. And I generally joke about having a type. Um, and like, but you sort of see it play out in that photo. It was like, holy shit. Like every girl, like I if you ask me, I would say like I'm not necessarily like into tall girls necessarily because I'm 6'4". So people are like, oh, you must be in tall girls. I'm like, no, not really. Like I think there's a limit to how short I can go just because it gets awkward at some point. But like out of the 10 girls, like 9 of them were over 6 feet tall that were in the photo.
Oh
I was
wow.
like, maybe without me even realizing it, I do have a type. But I also blame Hinge. I blame Hinge for that because I think Hinge's algorithm sees me at 6'4" and pushes girls to me that are tall. I think it knows. So just inevitably, I'm going to end up matching with more taller girls.
Well, people also women have the ability to put their deal breakers on age and size.
Right.
So you're getting all the people that are saying they want to date 6 foot over, six and over.
Right.
So
Right.
it is funny that they're all are they all, any of them basketball players? Like I just assume.
I don't even know. I'm
I don't
trying to
know any women
think
that
who's
are
there.
6 foot tall. That's why I asked that.
They were all like 5'11", 6 feet. Like the tallest I've dated, tallest I went on a date with, I guess she's like 6'2", which
Okay.
is tall. I mean, again, even being 6'4", like a girl to 6'2" is like, they're going to be tall. But I don't really notice height at all, unless you're very short or very tall. It all looks the same to me, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So you tend to date taller women. Are you is there like we only date Jewish women or you're all over the
No, I don't think so. I think it's like a nice thing to think about, but like my Jewishness is very like New York Jew culture where like I'm
Sure.
not so religious. So it's not that big of a deal to me. It's nice, but it's not like I seek that out or whatever.
Excellent. Well, so what are you doing now in terms of trying to meet people now? Are you just doing the dating apps or are you going to these events that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, I'll go to some events again. Like I just don't put anything into it because I don't put the pressure on. It's like, sure, like the apps are going and I match with some people and I talk to some people and maybe go out with them. Sure, I'll go to an event, but I put no expectation on those events. And it's interesting seeing the approach of people at the events, particularly the women. I think, whatever men maybe have a little bit more of a relaxed approach and stuff. Like you'll talk to these girls and you could kind of see the ones that are there, like, who's going to be my husband? You know what I mean? Just by the questions they're asking you, but stuff, it's like, oh, wow, they're like literally here being like, I'm here to find my husband or it's a failure. Or my approach is like, I don't know, I kind of wanted a fun night out. And like, if I meet someone, that's nice.
Yeah, I think that what I learned in New York when I did that event, I was the talent. I wasn't performing. So I even before I went on stage, I was approached by 3 different women. Like it was pretty aggressive. You don't see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't give a shit. They're on it.
They were on it fast, and I wasn't dressed up as much as everybody else because I asked if I needed to wear a suit, and I was the only one not wearing a suit or a sport coat at least. But it was aggressive, and it was like to the point. And in LA, they're aggressive, but it's a different kind of aggressive. It's kind of like,
Okay.
where do you live? What kind of car do you have? And shit like
Oh yeah. Where I always say it's funny, is like that's the difference I always tell people about like LA and New York. And I spent a lot of time in LA, both when I was in TV and now I was just out there we go. Is like that first question people ask you and what people's response to that is. So both places, it's like, oh, what do you do? So in New York, the answer is always like, oh, like, oh God, I work so hard, I kill myself. Like, oh, I do this, I just gotta hustle. Like, no matter what job you have and how much money you have. And the response back is always like, wow, like, yeah, like I respect that. Like, I get it. Like, we're both in New York. We're both trying to like make it. Even if you're a billionaire, you're still out here hustling. In LA, people are like, oh, like, I don't know, just kind of like hang out and do whatever, influencer. And people are like, oh shit, yeah, like that's what they respect, is you doing absolutely nothing.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm an influencer, or they say that I'm an entrepreneur a lot, kind of
right, a founder. It's like, great, all right.
Right. Have you gone on any dates recently where you're just like, oh, that was the worst date I've ever been on? Like, not the worst, but like you're like, I'm not gonna do. You learn from the experience that you won't.
Yeah, not recently. I would say like I think it's way easier for men to go on those dates and not have like this horrible experiences, just because like women can like control their crazy for a while, men can't. So I find out like women always tell me, it's like, hey, tell me like a crazy first date story, and she would be like, oh my god, like I got to the bar and he took his dick out, and you'd be like, yeah, okay, a guy's crazy. Like I'm not shocked that happened. We're girls like. A girl can contain her crazy for at least a few dates. So this first dates are always like, whatever. Like the worst date I had, the worst first date I ever had was like, I don't know this girl. This is a very long story, so I'll try and make it short.
Yeah, no.
But it's essentially we had like matched on Hinge. We'd sort of known each other from a while ago, whatever. Went out, and like it was just a date where like she just like wasn't talking. So I just felt like, okay, well, it's not really a connection here. That's totally fine. Again, it's a first date. That's what they're for. You're not good, whatever. So talk. She has half a drink. And I'm just like, I think I was like, okay, like, do you want anything else? And she's like, no, just a water. I'm like, okay, cool. Like this date's definitely over. Like, great. In my mind, I'm like deciding what to order for dinner. I'm going to go home, whatever. So I get the check and she's like, okay, where are we going next? And I was like, oh, she thinks this is going well. Okay. And I was like, all right, well, like, I guess I could always keep drinking. What do I care? So we went to next bar. And I get another drink. At this point, I'm like, this date is so boring. I just want to get over with. It was like a Thursday, Friday night. So now I'm like, okay, well, I've had a few drinks. I'll just keep drinking because I'll go meet up my friends. Because generally I want to stay like drink for drink with someone on a date. But in my brain, I'm like, this date's over. I don't fucking care. I want to drink. And she could continue having half a sip of her drink. I don't really care. So we're there. My voice is hoarse at this point because she hasn't said a word. I've just been talking. So finally we're done at that bar. And I'm thinking, I'm free. She goes, I'm really hungry. I go, okay. So I was like, so she had mentioned she like Shake Shack fries. I'm like, oh, we'll get some fries, Shake Shack's right there. She's like, no, I don't really want that. And I was going to go back to Brooklyn. We were in Manhattan. So I was like, okay, listen, I'm going to go back to Brooklyn. You're more than welcome to come with me and you could get food in Williamsburg. Okay, cool. I'm like, great. This will be over as soon as we get back to Brooklyn. We get in the car and she's like, oh, I think I'm blackout. I was like, in my brain, I was like, how? I was like, she's had like 2 drinks in 4 hours. But now I'm like, well, now my plan is to just ditch her, but now I can't do that. I'm like, going to ditch some girls blackout. So like brought her back to Brooklyn and like got her some food and sat there making sure she like drank water. And like finally I was like, do you like feel okay enough to get home? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Oh, cool. God.
But I was like, we were on completely different dates apparently.
It's so crazy how that happens, and there's just no self-awareness on dates sometimes with people. You go on these dates and you're like, did you really think that I was going to call you back? Like someone will call me and be like, hey, so I haven't heard from you. I'm like, yeah, we were talking about January 6th and you said some weird shit. I'm done. Like it's like, yeah. So sometimes people say stuff and they don't realize how it affects them. But yeah,
or say nothing for hours and just expect the date to go well.
I mean, for me, look, I'll go to a date, and if I know immediately it's not going anywhere, but I'm like, okay, well, maybe this could turn into something like a cool friendship, And I always positive energy. Let's find something positive in it. Or like I'm like, oh, maybe I'll meet someone and I can introduce her to I have a lot of girlfriends who need other girlfriends. I'm like, oh, you should go out with my friend, Becky. She needs. So that's what I'm thinking. But
that's absolutely my approach. My approach is like, listen, I don't know if I'm not dating with intention or not, but I do feel that like I don't walk out of any of those situations and I'm like, oh man, that sucked. It's like, no, okay, maybe it wasn't a match, but like, who cares? It was just a night out. What's the difference? Or maybe it's a friend, or maybe it's this, or maybe just a connection. Like it really doesn't matter. Like it really was not that bad.
Yeah. Worst case, they follow you on Instagram. It's another follow, right?
Sure. Great. Some girl accused me of that. Some girl accused me. I only found out because I guess this is years ago. So I forgot what it is. I went out with this girl. It was another date, like many of my dates. So just sort of like, oh, didn't really feel a connection. Wasn't talking much. I could just tell stories. I just tell a bunch of stories. What do I care? a year or two later, I run into this girl and she's like, oh, you went on a date with my roommate or friend or whatever. And she's like, yeah, like she said you just spent the whole time talking about your job or whatever. And that she felt like you just go on dates to get followers. So I was like, do you think I went on 500,000 dates in New York City? Like I have the time to go on dates to get one follower? Like that's insane.
I have on my right, I think it's on Hinge. It says, if you don't like me, at least you'll enjoy my podcast Singles Only. And then people are like, you're just doing it to get listeners. I'm like, I mean, it's a joke, but yeah, you'll learn a lot about me from my podcast if you listen. And a lot of times people listen like, do you really think marriage is an outdated institution? I'm like, yeah, but I lean into it on the podcast a little more.
Right.
But yeah, I do agree that like, well, I want to get married the next 6 months. I'm like, well, this is a so it works. Yeah. Some people think that like they'll say, oh, you're just going on dates to get stories for your
right.
your stand-up. I'm like, you have to be really fucking interesting for me.
Yes, odds are you're not going to be a story.
It's such a crazy situation. Well, Jeremy, we are out of time. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and telling us about yourself. I'd love to have you back on when I'm in New York. We could do it live next time.
Sure.
If you want. Where can people find out more about the Brunch Boys and everything else about you?
Just type my name in everything, Jeremy Jacobowitz, and you should be able to find me. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. God, I have them all going. Apps you guys have never even heard of. So there's this app in India called Rizzle. You ever heard of it?
No.
Well, I really don't know what it is either, but I have 375,000 followers there. So I'm like,
yeah.
whatever. I'm huge in India. I love it.
Hey, whatever it takes, man. Well, I look forward to seeing the new projects you have coming up too, production wise and everything else too. Now that shit's opened up again. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for doing the podcast, and thank you all for listening to another edition of Singles Only Podcast.
Okay, I know it's all fun and games. My Better Call Paul spiels on stage, or my shirts that say Better Call Paul. Donating a lot of the money for charity, by the way. PaulFcomedy.com. You can get your shirt, as always. But here's the thing. If you actually need a lawyer, you have to get professional help. So if you're injured on the job, you don't know what kind of compensation you're entitled to, or you're injured in a car accident. Don't handle something on your own, and don't call some random person that you see in commercials on daytime TV. Call someone that really knows what they're doing. Someone that's helped workers who are injured for over 20 years in Chicago and beyond. My good friend, attorney Scott Shapiro. He is your man. Give him a call. Here's the thing. He also handles entertainment law, whether you're a comedian, a musician, a podcaster, a wrestler, an actor, anything. He's handled all these things for 20 years here in Chicago. He is your guy. Give him a call, 312-627-1650, or email him at scott@scottshapirolegal.com. All consultations initially free of charge. Your first consultation is free. You have nothing to lose. Don't take any chances. Call my friend Scott Shapiro, 312-627-1650, scott@scottshapirolegal.com. Tell him I sent you. You're welcome.